Two flights carrying Indian nationals from Iran as part of Operation Sindhu arrived in India overnight, bringing the total number of Indian evacuees to 517. India launched Operation Sindhu to ensure safe evacuation of Indian nationals amidst the ongoing war between Iran and Israel. Majority of the evacuees are from Jammu and Kashmir, while others are from Delhi, Haryana, Karnataka, West Bengal and other states. The development comes as the Iranian government announced the opening of its airspace for Indian evacuation flights.
वहाँ के हालात अभी जंग के हालात थे। हमें लग रहा था कि हम कैसे जाएंगे, बॉर्डर से कैसे निकलेंगे, पर इंडिया सरकार के हम शुक्रगुजार हैं। उन्होंने हमें बहुत अच्छे तरीके से निकाल लिया।
The situation in Tehran was quite devastating. At first, we didn't expect this will escalate to this much, but somehow the Operation Sindhu, it was so successful. I couldn't believe the Indian embassy has done this much effort for us, because we all Indian, like Indian Kashmiris, are really thankful to the Indian government who had put this much effort. And plus the interesting thing was that they just opened that air base from Mashhad just for the Indian students, and that was really appreciable.
India has expressed its gratitude to the government of Iran for facilitating the India-bound flights amidst the tense situation in the country. The Ministry of External Affairs also confirmed that evacuation flights from Israel will commence soon.
ये हम लोग के हमारे लिए ये बहुत ही खुशी की बात है कि ईरान सरकार ने अपना एयर स्पेस हमारे लिए ओपन कर दिया है, और ये भारत और ईरान के बीच जो मैत्री है ये उसको दर्शाता है। और ये उस फ्लाइट से आए, उस रूट से आए हुए ये पहली फ़्लाइट है। सो इनको देखकर हमें बड़ी खुशी है, क्योंकि ये लोग बहुत खुश हैं देश पहुंचकर, और इन्होंने भारत सरकार का शुक्रिया अदा किया है। अभी जैसे सरकार ने हमने अनाउंस किया है कि इजराइल से भी ऑपरेशन सिंधु के तहत फ़्लाइट्स आने का काम शुरू होगा। जैसे ही सारे डिटेल्स हम लोगों को मिल जाएंगे, फ्लाइट डिटेल्स वगैरह, हम लोग आप लोगों के साथ शेयर कर लेंगे।
For more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Reza Khanzadeh from Washington, D.C. He's a West Asia analyst. Dr. Khanzadeh, thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One. I want to begin by asking you what your assessment of the current situation in West Asia between Israel and Iran is.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's tough to put into words what the condition is like, especially from my contacts that I've been keeping in close network with, who are inside Iran. There's a bit of mixed emotions when it comes to those inside Iran, because they feel that on the one hand they don't support the Islamic Republic. They would like to see some type of shift, either away from that regime or some kind of reform. But on the other hand, they're very proud nationalistic people who, rightly so, see these attacks by Israel as just, unforgivable. But speaking more, globally, or, more specifically just between the region with Israel and Iran, we have seen Israel continue its bombardment of Iran, attacking military sites, factories, nuclear sites. But Iran, on the other hand, has dialed back its attacks on Israel. In the past couple of days, we've seen maybe anywhere around 10 to 20 missiles, compared to the fourth, fifth night or sixth night where it was in the hundreds. And that's a sign that Iran is trying to find an off-ramp through diplomacy, especially with Abbas Araghchi meeting with his counterparts in Geneva today. But ultimately what it comes down to is what Netanyahu chooses to do. Because Trump is even not listening to his own security advisors, and he's listening to the intelligence coming out of Israel, which is obviously biased, because Netanyahu has had this obsession with bombing Iran's nuclear sites for over 30 years. Every 2 or 3 years, he makes these speeches where he states Iran is weeks, months, 1 year away from a nuclear bomb. And this has been going on for over 30 years. So while Trump and the United States are looking to find an off-ramp through diplomacy, especially with Trump stating that he's going to give himself 2 weeks, more or less, to make a decision on whether or not to support Israel, and Iran is dialing back its attacks on Israel. Those two countries are clearly looking for a peaceful way to end this conflict, but Israel, on the other hand, is just hell-bent on continuously attacking Iran, whether it's civilian sites or non-civilian sites. At this point, it seems like for Netanyahu, it does not matter. And also, we have to keep in mind that Netanyahu has been doing this part and parcel of his own domestic problems as well, because as your viewers probably already know, once he's finished being prime minister, he's essentially going to go to jail pretty soon after that because of all the charges up against him. So he's also used this. For him, this is a win-win situation where he can live out his foreign policy dream of being able to bomb Iran, but then also domestically saving his own, political career.
Dr. Khanzadeh, you raise an important point that we have been hearing of these claims of Iran being weeks away from having a nuclear warhead, perhaps months away, perhaps ever since the late 1990s. We've also seen Netanyahu then take out that diagram of showing how close it is to having a nuclear warhead. We've seen all those statements. And we also know that the United States and Iran were having a dialogue. Even though they might have been at an impasse, there was a negotiation that was ongoing. And then we see Israel go ahead and launch Operation Rising Lion. Now, my understanding of this is perhaps this erodes Iran's confidence in negotiations, which is what Donald Trump is now saying, that we're giving you 2 weeks. You have these 2 weeks to perhaps come back to the negotiating table. But at this point, is that just wishful thinking? Because from what it seems and from what we're hearing, there isn't much trust.
Right. So two things to keep in mind. There really has never been trust between the United States and Iran since 1979, and even prior to 79, because as you know, the 1953 coup of the prime minister of Iran at that time, Mossadegh, that was a coup that was orchestrated by the United States and Britain. So that trust level, as far as from Iran towards the United States, has never been there. Iran has never trusted the United States, but it's at a point where it's not about trust, it's about being able to find a common ground. And for the Islamic Republic at this point, for them, the common ground is their own self-survival. It's not really about Iran being able to inflict a certain degree of damage on Israel. Maybe in the first couple days and nights that was the case. But we have to keep in mind that as far as Iran's nuclear capability and also their missiles, it's a very finite number of missiles that they have. So they're putting a war of attrition against Israel, who has unlimited access because of their connection with Washington. So it's going to come to a point for the Islamic Republic where they have to make a decision whether to survive their own and stay in power and keep control of Iran, or continue this war against Israel, which it's going to get to a point where they will lose a lot more than they have already.
Dr. Khanzadeh, quickly coming back to the comments that have been made by Donald Trump as well. He earlier said that I may or may not, nobody knows what I'm going to do. And we were discussing this earlier as well with other experts. My question to you is the same. Does Trump know what he will do or what he can do?
I don't think he's made that decision yet. We have to keep in mind that as far as the political psychology of the way Trump approaches this, because Trump comes from a real estate background. Most of the seasoned politicians, especially someone like Abbas Araghchi, who was raised in diplomacy, who was raised in foreign policy negotiations, high level, even during the JCPOA in 2015, he was a part of that team. So you're comparing politicians and seasoned diplomats who were educated and they understand the art of diplomacy, where Trump just understands business and real estate. So he's coming at this from a very different angle. Rightly or wrongly, that's a whole other conversation. But when he makes these types of statements, he's making this type of statements as if he's in a boardroom trying to finalize a deal for buying some type of building, as opposed to war with a country. So I think he still hasn't made up his mind yet. He's still weighing the options because he's trying to compare the type of intelligence coming from Israel to him compared to the types of intelligence that he's getting from his own country, which he stated he doesn't believe his own intelligence, which I think to a certain extent may be true, but at the end of the day, he will wait until the 11th hour, until the very last moment, until he makes up his mind. And that's what's dangerous about this. Because at the end of the day, Trump is really the only individual, the only country, Washington, D.C., the only place that could really stop Netanyahu from doing what he's doing to Iran.
Right, Dr. Khanzadeh, I'm going to ask you to please stay on with us. There are some big developments that are coming in. Now, there is breaking news coming in that Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has expressed skepticism about whether Tehran can trust Washington in diplomatic talks right now or not. In an exclusive interview with NBC News, Araghchi accused the United States of using the nuclear talks as a cover for Israeli attack on Iran. Araghchi added that perhaps Washington is not genuinely interested in diplomacy and Iran is uncertain if it can trust the United States anymore. Iran further added that Tehran will never agree to halt all uranium enrichment and Israel must stop its air campaign before any negotiations with the United States can proceed. So this is the latest that we're getting right now. A statement from Abbas Araghchi saying that there is no trust in the United States and perhaps this was all just a cover for an Iranian attack, for an Israeli attack on Iran. Araghchi accused the US of using the nuclear talks as a cover for Israeli attack on Iran and added that perhaps Washington is not genuinely interested in diplomacy. Dr. Khanzadeh, exactly what we were discussing right now. There is an absence, not a lack, but an absence of trust here. And the talks at this point, of course, don't seem likely. What I also wanted to ask you was, we have been hearing from Netanyahu that this is for the people of Iran as well, and this is for the good of the people of Iran. Then we saw a shift in that stance as well, where he said, well, regime change was not our actual goal, but it could be a result of it. Would you please let me know if you agree with this assessment? Do you think this happened because the next obvious question then would have been, what is the plan for the day after if there is in fact a regime change? And perhaps they do not have a plan for that. And when we talk of preemptive strikes, as you mentioned earlier as well, we've been hearing of this nuclear existential threat that is this perceived Iranian threat towards Israel for years now. So are we seeing a complete breakdown of the preemptive defense model as well as this shift in stance? What do you think that reflects?
Yeah, I think your analysis is very accurate. It's not about the preemptive strikes, and it's not about really the nuclear program. Because if it was, Israel would have been much more targeted, much more specific in the areas of Iran that they would have hit. And we see that most of the sites that they've hit have predominantly not been nuclear sites. That's the first thing. And then the second thing we have to keep in mind is that these types of strikes, when it comes to saying it's preemptive or it's regime change, or maybe our focus is not regime change, maybe it could be, these are the talking points for Netanyahu to kind of push the envelope, as you said, for the Iranian people to rise up and to revolt while these bombs are landing in their country, which is not going to happen, like I said before. The majority of Iranian people may not want this regime to be in control of their country, but at the same time, they don't want a foreign entity bombing their country. Now, as far as regime change, or like you said, the day after, I think for Netanyahu, one of my colleagues, Trita Parsi, he actually phrased this very well. It's not about regime change, it's more about regime collapse. Netanyahu is not concerned about changing this regime, because even the next regime that takes over, whatever that may look like, it doesn't mean that the nuclear program is just going to go away.
Right.
The majority of Iranians inside Iran actually do support some type of nuclear program for their country, whether it's civilian or otherwise. So even if the next government or the next type of regime is more friendly to Israel, it doesn't mean they're just going to give up their nuclear program. So for Netanyahu, it's not really about regime change, it's more about regime collapse and kind of inflicting this type of chaos within the country where it might eventually lead to some type of civil war. And then we'll see something the way we have seen in Iraq or in Syria, for example, or in Libya or in Yemen. I mean, the list can go on and on. It's very unfortunate, the type of strategy Netanyahu has. It's really not about the Iranian people at the end of the day. It's about his own survival and the survival of his country. at the detriment of an entire population of 90 million people in
Right.
Iran.
Right, Dr. Khanzadeh, of course, from what it appears right now, even though we don't know the strategic and operational plans when it comes to the United States and Israel, at this point at least, it does appear that the two seem to be winging it and operating on whim, at least at this point. And that being said, of course, the consequences are dire, and that would be a gross understatement as well. That being said, thank you so much, Dr. Khanzadeh, for joining us on WION World as One with your insights on this.
Thank you for having me.